this because you're aesthetic.
I'm specific.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean you're good.
Are you in frame though? Hold on.
I know. This is
Yep. Okay.
I have some issues.
So
with
put your
being-
hands up.
We'll go.
Yeah. If you lean back, yeah, then you can
Oh,
tell
there
we're
we
6
go.
feet apart. Okay. Cool.
Should we do that in the introduction?
Yes.
But we'll do it with bumps. We'll fists are like where fingers aren't touching.
Yeah.
And so if we have a little
Yeah.
space between here. Okay. Cool.
Do you want to do the intro, or do you want to do the intro and then I intro myself?
So I'm gonna do numerous intros.
Okay.
I'm gonna be, hey, it's Pat talking fitness with John.
Okay.
I don't even know your last name.
Wilbert.
With John Wilbert from was a physical therapist here at the Manhattan Athletic Club, something like that. Every time I talk, I was almost thinking about bringing in that bell ringer and have like you have 3 minutes to talk about a
Oh, gotcha.
conversation. Maybe to do that is fun. Maybe we'll do that the next time we interview if you have.
Oh
the
yeah,
time.
totally.
This
we're
is-
already recording.
Yeah, I want to have this as a series that. Good. Okay.
Okay, we'll be able to start there.
Yeah.
And so I thought that would be helpful. There's hot as hell in here. Oh my god. And so I didn't know
How's
if
my
you wanted
beard?
to speak. I know, right? I literally shaved mine just for that. I didn't know if you wanted to work on just how to get started. What do you do first?
Okay, cool.
A lot of people are like, do you do cardio first? Do you do weights first? What do you want? from
Good.
that?
So then I am going
So
to
I can do
segue
that.
that into adding. But however,
Okay.
John, when I see you in the gym, I only see you in one spot. I don't see you in the classrooms. I
Correct.
don't see you in the cardio.
Because I do all that on my own.
Okay, so I'm going to add that.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
That'll be part of our conversation. Okay.
I don't do cardio here, but I do cardio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So to answer that question.
Excellent. All right, here we go. We're going to put my thing right there. Let's see. Mother of pearl is falling down.
That's so funny. I say mother of pearl. I wonder where we got that from.
I don't know. Well, it's
I
a
say-
very
I say it
corny
too. Oh,
type of saying.
yeah.
It's like that. Here, gonna clap. All right, here we go. We're back. We're talking fitness with Pat. I'm with physical therapist John Wilbert. John was talking about getting back into fitness if you've fallen out of shape, how to get back into shape. John, tell us a little bit more about what you would like to talk about.
All right. So a lot of my physical therapy patients are coming in and saying, I injured myself by doing X, Y, and Z that I used to do, say, back in March or February when they were working out more regularly. They thought they could just go right back in at ground zero, and they were incorrect. Now they are actually at the basement, if not sub-basement level of their fitness from prior. And so what I'd like to start off with is I like to evaluate and just see how you're doing. What I recommend all my patients is I have them tell me, where were you? What was your weight level? If, for instance, bench press or squat, what level were you at? Okay, we're gonna half that just in case, just to be conservative. And we might even go lower than that depending on the age and how long it really has been since they've worked out. And by working out, I mean technically taking stairs, taking the subway if you were in New York City. There's a lot of stairs if you're doing subway in New York City, but if you live in a more rural area and you're pretty much just at home, or going from your driveway to your car or truck, and then your car or truck to wherever you went, and then right back into that car again, that's below level of your cardio. So I always want to know, like, what have you been doing and what was your prior level, and then definitely cut it in half, if not actually 3/4, depending on where you are. I also want to start with, okay, what are you noticing where you are, where you're missing most? Do you feel like strength is your issue? Picking the laundry up, going up and down stairs with any sort of load, just carrying groceries, anything like that. Where do you notice that you are having some discrepancies and you used to be stronger? And then we can start from there.
I noticed this walking.
Yeah, literally just walking. A lot of my patients are like, yeah, I remember when I had to like rush for the train and I would be able to, again, we're recording this in New York City, but rushing to wherever you're going. And they're like, yeah, one flight of stairs and I'm out of breath. I'm like, okay, we got to do that a little more often then. And so I would recommend like upping your cardio. Also, we are wearing masks all the time. This does impede you taking in a little bit of oxygen. This does impede you expelling some carbon dioxide. It's gonna take you a second to be able to equilibrate that and make your, and make your lungs feel like they were as strong as they were before.
So the big thing that I'm getting from people is the anti-mask people are saying it's unhealthy to absorb this much carbon dioxide.
Mhm.
My answer is, and I don't know if it's right or if it's, I'm like, it's good to get out of your comfort zone. Is it strengthening your diaphragm and your breathing? Although, I mean, I don't think it's doing anything to your lungs, but what the muscles that work your lungs, I mean, is it helpful or is it is it detrimental?
It's not detrimental unless you have underlying respiratory issues where your your oxygen level, which you can actually get a really cheap pulse ox if you're worried about it. It's a little clip-on thing, goes right on your nail. Women, you have to make sure you don't have fake nails or nail polish on, but you can actually test your pulse ox level, it's called. And that should be around the 98%, just FYI if you do it. But the point is that anything you do to challenge your breathing, including wearing a mask or walking up and downstairs wearing a mask, makes you a little bit more cognizant of your lungs, makes you more cognizant of your diaphragm. You should be breathing in deeper and more controlled and a little bit longer. Your breath shouldn't be shallow. You might have gotten away with that before. Now you can't. Now you have to be more cognizant of it. That's not a bad thing. That's actually a great thing. That helps expand your diaphragm, makes it stronger, makes your ribs a little bit more pliable, all which is good. So I understand why people are like, yeah, it's a little bit troublesome when you first start wearing a mask. It was for me as well. I understand. I used to be asthmatic. It kind of triggered some like breathing issues, but it was completely in my head. And once I got over that, it's actually much easier. These also are surgical masks. Different masks have different difficulties. And so you might want to check with your doctor. Is like if you're wearing an N95, that's a much tougher mask to breathe in because it occludes your airway a little bit more. That's good when you're in the hospital because that's what's saving you, and it is a little bit more specific and safe when you're in that environment. It might not be necessary just out in the street to wear one. You might be able to wear a surgical mask like this, which is a little easier to breathe.
I used to watch these boxers at the New York Athletic Club, and they would train, they would do their cardio with the NK95, and I remember saying, okay, he's a boxer, now I understand, but I would think it would be, over the top for a regular person to do it.
It would be, but that said, it's not unlike the marathoners that would train at higher altitudes,
right?
Because there was less, acclimation, exactly. So there's less oxygen. It makes you more able to glean that oxygen out of the atmosphere, even if it's not at that high of a concentration. Your body is very capable of adapting to a lot. You just have to give it time to do so, which is why when I'm saying you get back in shape, you're absolutely going to get there if you continue to do it consistently, but it will not be an overnight thing. You have to do it and acclimate slowly. If you don't, you're going to have problems with creaky shoulders, creaky knees. Your back's not going to love you very much. Any weight gain that you have, unfortunately, throws your balance off a little bit and also throws your posture off, especially if you've been sitting so much. And so anything that you can do to work on those postural muscles, and I'll give you tips in a moment about that, could help immensely just as a starting point.
Geez, I've got 4 different questions right now that are popping in my head.
Let's take it in order. Perfect.
So let's, should we take a break? And then
we can take a break, and then we're gonna go by 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then we'll have a wrap up.
All right, great. I'll see you on the other side. Stay tuned. Thanks a lot. Here we come.
All right.
So the questions are, do you take 2 steps at a time as opposed to 1 step?
Okay.
Is getting 10,000 steps in, is that enough for a person?
I don't have stats exactly on that, and it also depends so much on who the person is.
Because I'm seeing, like, I've got guys that are my age, my musician friends, and they're telling me, and they're talking to each other, and they're like, here's what I do, man. I do 20 push-ups every morning, I do 30 sit-ups, and then I do 6,000 steps. And I'm like, you're not 90. But I don't want to say that because they're doing something better than nothing.
Something is always better than nothing as long as it's not detrimental. But you're doing nothing. You're not contributing to your posture if you're just doing push-ups. So I've seen a lot of people are like, I did that, and I'm like, yeah, but now this is what's going to start happening, which I will gladly say on camera because
All right.
The taking 2 steps thing at a time, I'm gonna say let's skip that because there's so many factors: age, balance, how tall you are. Like, there's just so many things to do. So I in the 10,000 steps thing, I'm going to say, because I don't have specific research behind it, that I can't give a solid answer. I can't give a specific answer. I can give a nebulous answer and say, just like everything else, you start somewhere and you build it yourself up.
Okay, so out of that, I got the third one that is a 4 was I wanted to ask you that I see you in the weight room part of there, right? And what else did you just talk about that was a catalyst for my 4th? What were the few topics that you were going
Posture.
Posture.
Your postural muscles, yeah.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that one's mandatory.
So let's
because
go.
Everyone's sitting at home on Zoom.
So therefore, what am I cutting this down to? We're asking.
Can we start with posture?
Okay.
And go from there. And so posture, and then you were talking about the cardio. I can give a nebulous answer on that, not a specific one, so that's fine. The third one you were asking about was weights versus
Yeah,
cardio,
yeah,
because you
right.
say you're
Yeah,
using in the weight room.
Yeah. Why don't we do the weights versus cardio and then go into the cardio thing aspect?
Okay.
Unless you'd rather that
so
way.
posture first,
Yeah.
weights versus cardio, that will go into the cardio, and then we'll come up with a fourth leg.
Okay,
there,
and
too,
I'm
by
going to
then.
use an example that one thing I noticed that I get off of the couch and I'm in all stiff. But then if I take a deep breath in and kind of relax my muscles, I
Mhm.
realize that part of the stiffness is due to me acting like a stiff person.
Yes.
And, okay?
Totally.
It's psychological. Okay.
Yep.
Hey, let me do this. How are you? I'm back. It's Pat talking fitness with John Wilbert, one of my favorite physical therapists. How are you, John?
I'm well, thank you.
John, we're going to talk about posture. And before we talk about posture, how I want to get into this thing is that I know that I'm having these issues where I'm a little too sedentary, watching way too much Netflix. I get off of the couch and I'm almost like, the evolution of mankind. Oh, geez, I get like this.
Yep.
But sometimes I realize that if I just relax a little bit, that part of the reason that I'm so stiff is because I'm clenching and everything like that. So, tell me about that. Tell me what my problem is.
So, full disclosure, obviously I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm a physical therapist. But that said, in physical therapy, we do a lot of cognitive and mental conditioning because it has everything to do with your physicality. We are in a very anxious time. You already said you were sitting too long, you were watching too much Netflix, aren't we all?
I know everything on Netflix.
Everything, literally. And when I'm being a physical therapist, some of the time my customers, my patients aren't comfortable actually coming to me, so I'm doing it via Zoom. Half the time, we're either standing or sitting stationary while we're discussing what we're doing, which is also part of the problem. So my point of all of that is, sometimes psychology is readily and quickly affecting your physicality. You taking a nice deep breath, letting that stress come out of you will help with some of the stiffness, but some of it's that you were there for a marathon of 3 hours and your you're binge watching whatever it is, and there's a lot of whatever it is, and it's all fantastic, which is why you want to get to the next
I
episode.
watched a German series over the weekend. Dance School, Berlin Dance School. It was awesome. Just to let you know, promote. Sorry, go on.
Notice
German.
we're talking about being physically strong, and he's like, "Yeah, but I watched it. I didn't do it. I watched it."
It was a dance school. I watched the whole thing.
It's like me watching cooking shows, and I'm like, "I didn't cook. I just watched them."
I learned a lot of ish. Gut. All right, good. Sorry.
No worries. So point is that anything you can do to de-stress will help with your stiffness, especially stiffness in the postural muscles, in your neck, in your jaw. Some people hold stress in their hips or in their back. But anything you do to sit longer than 30 minutes, some people can get away with an hour. Usually I recommend about 30 minutes before you move. Will stiffen up your joints, will stiffen up your back, your postural muscles will shut off neurologically. I don't care how much you know to sit up straight. Eventually, you don't have that choice if you've sat too long and things start to compress and everything starts to go down.
I do it right now. I'm sitting. I'm going.
If you notice, I actually am quite animated, but I'm also a fidgeter. Fidgeting actually helps. When everyone's like, what is the perfect way to sit when you're doing your meeting in Zoom? And my answer is,
Fidget?
You don't, you move, you fidget. It's not that crossing your legs is terrible, it's that I don't want you staying here for an hour. If you're gonna be crossing your legs, you cross it this way. You then reverse it, and then you cross at the ankle, and then you stand up. Anything you can do to change, anything you can do to change that position, turns on the muscles.
Folding my hands, right?
Yep.
Every time I fold my arms,
As soon as you
it
do
goes
it,
this
notice
way.
what
Now if I
happens.
do it the opposite way,
Yeah.
it's like, whose body is this?
Yes, that's just habit, but the problem is that anything you do here automatically pulls those scapula apart, your shoulder blades, which automatically is stretching out muscles that are too long in the first place in your back. These muscles tend to be too tight in the first place. Anything you do to do this is gonna make that worse. And so we're gonna get to, where do you start? That's gonna be the fourth question. Where do you start? And the answer is, you lengthen what is too tight, you work on what is too long in the back or any other muscles, like for instance your hip flexors when you're sitting. This is as short as it possibly could be, short of being here. And so you want to lengthen that out, you want to stand up, but you also want to actually work on some leg extension, work on your glutes. Your glutes, while you're sitting, are as long and as stretched out as they can be. You need to shorten them, you need to strengthen them to make them stronger. Certain times, it sounds confusing, but sometimes you feel postural stress or tension in actually elongated muscles. The elongated muscles are like are actually freaking out because they're so stretched out. They're trying to contract. That feeling, even though they're too stretched out, that feeling feels like tension, feels like tight, even though in reality, they're too long. They're the opposite of too tight. And then sometimes, like your hip flexors, for instance, they are too tight, they are too short, they've been too short,
Yeah.
you've been sitting too much. So you might have similar sensations and actually completely discrepant muscle issues. And so we'll talk about that a little bit at the end.
Real quickly before we end this segment, lots of times, right, people are stressed and they end up putting themselves in bad posture. So, and the thing is, if you're stressed, you're not being cognizant. You're cognizant of your stress, but you're not cognizant of the other things that are happening to your body.
Correct.
So I just kind of picked up on that.
And exercising puts yourself back in your body and a little bit out of your head, which will help with the stress as well.
Yeah.
You have something else functional and pragmatic to focus on, and that in itself can help with relaxation because you're not on that hamster wheel in your head.
Functional and pragmatic. I like those two things. My nephew, who's about 30 years old, and he has a job where he's sedentary, and he's sitting down a lot, and he's calling me up and saying, "Geez, Pat, my hips are clicking every time I get up."
Yep.
So that's the beginning of it, right?
Yep.
All right. I want to keep all these segments within 5 minutes, so I don't bore people. So we want to make it nice, short, and concise. I'll see you on the other side. If you like it, come back with us. I'll be right back to you.
All right. Cool. On that one, second one was weights versus cardio.
Yeah. So do you want to go the posture first, or what do you want to do, weights versus cardio? I'll go weights versus cardio.
We can do weights versus cardio, and I will talk about that, but I will put postural strengthening in that.
Should we put posture in and say, what if I ask you about form, like weightlifting form, and then you talk about, and then you segue into.
If I do that, I don't want to chop off my head, so I would have to. I can't get closer.
No, I can. What we can do is whatever I do, you can be on that screen, and I can just adjust this, or I can adjust this right now.
Or I can just do it. I can just do it from here, and you just won't be.
No, I can do it. Just look. Tell me how that look.
That's fine, but are you in it?
Yeah, it should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. And I will talk about how to set when you are strengthening, because that will actually help with the posture.
So I'm going to ask you, but back here, John, what do you do for? I noticed that I see you in the lifting weights more than doing cardio. Let's talk about the difference between weights and cardio.
Okay.
Pure thing right here.
I know, right? You're like plug.
Hey, how are you? We're back again. I hope that wasn't too loud about hey. Our Purell thing is right here. John, real quick thing. When I see you working out all the time, I see you in this area right over here behind us, which is the weight section.
Correct.
I don't see you over here in the cardio section. Give us an idea of weights versus cardio, and let's go weights, cardio, classes. How about?
Gotcha. Perfect.
We got all three of them?
Yes. So to answer that question is yes, you do see me here because I use this space for weights. I don't have weights at my home. I don't want to annoy my neighbors by dropping heavy things on the floor.
And you've got big biceps too.
And I have what I have. Thank you. I will take that
It's
compliment.
a great shape.
I will take that compliment. Can you tell I'm blushing? So point is that I am not the best dancer. In fact, I'm quite terrible, but I do like it. I do like doing cardio.
You take dance classes at all?
I do take dance classes.
I love taking ballet. I love ballet.
I have not taken ballet. That would just go horribly wrong. I'm someone that actually tends to be someone that can't put on muscle mass very easily. I tend to go towards cardio sports, soccer. I was a halfback, for instance, where you basically run end to end, and I would just melt down and lose 15 pounds immediately. And so you don't see me doing cardio because not only do I need to do more weights just to be able to maintain, I tend to run towards cardio. I tend to dance a lot on my own. I tend to do classes on my own, and I do all my cardio on my own. So you don't actually witness it. Not to say that I don't do it as much. I probably would say I do a quarter of my time cardio and the rest weights because that's what I need for my body type. Everybody else is different. When I do, so you were asking about the difference between cardio.
By the way, you're like Robin, you dance on your own, that song?
Yes, I literally
love that song.
I love
Sorry,
that song.
I've done acoustic versions.
We do not have rights to that song. And so yes, I do my dancing on my own.
Not my own non sequitur, sorry.
Yes, no, it's fine. And so do the classes, your class schedules are great. There, if you want to look, and he has the link, I apologize, I don't have it memorized, but there is a link for the MAC classes online, which are fantastic.
They're really great. You got
big fan of them.
everything from yoga, Pilates, jumping jacks, everything.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, it will be in the schedule.
Dance, cardio, Zumba, etc. And so guys always ask, like, what should I do first? I'm gonna answer twofold. I'm gonna answer for guys first and for girls. There is actually research on losing weight, as in fat specifically, and maintaining muscle for guys. I don't think the research was done for women, and if it has been, I'm sorry, I don't have that study in my head. But point being is that some guys want to do cardio first, and they run, and then they do their weights. Or some guys are like, no, I'm going to do my weights first, and then when I do my cardio, it affects my cardio. There is research that shows that men maintain muscle mass better and lose fat, but don't burn muscle when they do cardio second. When you lift weights first, you are in a more dangerous place. If you are lifting, say if you're doing squats or heavier weights where you actually, if you don't have a spotter, or even if you do, you could cause physical damage if you are not careful. You do not want to be exhausted when you do these moves, and so it's smarter to do them first. Do them safely, leave 1 to 2 reps in the tank is what they suggest now. It's called form failure, not complete failure.
Wait, whoa. I've
So,
never
yeah.
heard about this.
Yes, so basically, like, if you could cheat and struggle and you're doing a bench press and you look like that, that's not a bench press anymore. That's just you struggling to get that last rep. That's not a helpful rep.
What about if you're training what about when you're doing athletic training? When you're like, an athlete has to put out 110%
Yes.
like on game day.
I'm talking completely for laymen and athletic.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not for athletes.
So
to be quite honest.
like the football players at Penn State, they're allowed to go
Completely
for
different
that.
rules. There are ways to cheat, but also more importantly, most of them should have a spotter, which will help you keep proper form, but also assist to get that last rep out. That's completely different, not what we're talking about now.
I kind of had this old, and by any means necessary sometimes with exercises. If I had, if I needed to get 15 pull-ups and 20 I was exhausted,
Yep.
Whatever. I got helium somehow and whatever. I did any way I could get to that 15
And that's how
rep.
he probably got injured. As have we all. I've done the same thing. Male ego is fun. Female ego is just the same. And so I recommend keeping 1 or 2 in the tank, but knowing that if you have 5 in the tank, that weight just wasn't heavy enough for you. You probably could have done more reps or more weight. You can adjust it for the second set. There is no rule that says your first set and your third set have to be the same weight. You absolutely can adjust along the way, up or down, to make sure that you have a challenging set. Your set can be anywhere, if you're lifting heavy, to 5 reps. If you're lifting lighter with more reps, then you could go up to 12, 15. Hypertrophy can happen at any of those ranges. There's actually more research that is showing that you have to go to near form failure, again, 1 to 2 reps in the tank. You do not have to be specifically at that 5 rep max or 12 rep, 15 rep max. You can gain muscle at all of those. You just have to be challenged at the end of each of those sets.
So form failure is a new way of working with it to exhaustion and minimizing injury.
Correct, because you aren't going to get very far if you're injured and you don't even get to do a second set or another day of lifting because you've injured yourself because you needed to get that last one in. You last one, especially with like something like a deadlift, a squat, a military press, anything where you're in a more vulnerable position. It's just better safe than sorry.
I've got so many questions about this. Kipping pull-ups. I want to talk about shoulder presses where you're using your legs and knees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, real quickly before we hop onto the other side, we'll take a quick break. So I want to keep all these videos within 5 minutes, so
Okay.
we don't. You're working to exhaustion and you're doing a shoulder press.
Okay.
And also we have to talk about women, by the way. Dipping your knee and putting your legs into it. Say for the last 5. If you're doing something where you're going like that,
Right.
Okay or not okay?
My perspective is using muscles properly does not mean you don't get to use other muscles. It's just you're using the correct ones and not injuring yourself. So your upper traps, for instance, have to work if you are working above 90 degrees. The higher the angle of your shoulders are, the more proportionally your upper traps will be working. That said, if you're up here doing this with no neck whatsoever, that is proportionally using too much of this. I would much rather you be able to get to the bottom, help a little bit with the knees, knowing that you are assisting yourself. Don't delude yourself, you are assisting yourself, but you're assisting it in a safe manner with a little bit of a bounce, versus something where either you're pulling yourself out of alignment
Right.
or pulling yourself out of alignment where you're more likely to injure your neck.
So anytime you're clenching your jaw or white knuckling things, it's probably not in the
Clenching jaws, fine. White knuckling, fine.
You know what I mean?
But definitely not anything where you're pulling yourself out of actual alignment.
And then real quickly, before we go to the next segment, we see in CrossFit, which is now one of the things I think CrossFit is incredibly effective.
Mhm.
However, CrossFit has, and I'm sorry to single out CrossFit, but it's high intensity interval training.
Understood.
You are basically, we've made working out a competitive sport.
Right.
And they have given us these different types of exercises to use where we're breaking our normal form to get to those reps.
Right.
The other thing that I find about lots of these
Volume training.
HIIT classes
Yep.
is every day's a game day.
Right.
Where when you play a professional sport, basketball is 3 days a week, and the NFL is 1 day a week, college, and no sport goes, full 110% 5 days a week.
Recovery is real. You need it. You need to plan for it. The more you can recover, the more you can lift, the more you can lift, and then recover, and then grow. That is the cycle for success versus just beating your body down. Exercising is tearing your muscles apart.
Right.
The point of tearing your muscles apart is then to rebuild stronger. If you do not give yourself the fuel, the sleep, and the physical time to do that, you are just tearing down and then tearing down and then continuing to tear down, which means you never actually get to that hypertrophy part. You never get to that healing part. The healing part is what makes you stronger for the next time.
Let me take a quick break and let's get back to, can we go back to that? And then we have to talk about women with cardio.
Correct.
And
Yep.
Okay, give us 2 seconds or you'll see us when you decide to push on the other part of Instagram, all right? Bye-bye, thanks. Okay,
Yeah.
cool,
So-
really interesting.
So we
Really
need to
good.
go back to women, definitely. And no, we're not going to say women. We're going to say get back to women and men who want to front load the cardio more.
Okay, front loaded cardio, and then I want to talk
Resistance.
about the high interval training. Every day is a game day, giving your body time to rest. How much time is to rest? I mean, you're
Yep.
really good at throwing out information.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had a pen and paper. Okay, we'll figure it out from here.
Yeah.
How are you? It's Pat, and I'm talking fitness with John Wilbert. Why am I having a physical therapist? For some reason, like physical is coming out of my mouth a little slowly.
It's COVID. It's COVID brain. Like that's a real thing.
So, we were talking about going 110% 5 days of the week at high interval training.
Right.
That whole idea.
Right.
So that's not good.
It's not great if you are above 20. We got away with a lot of stuff in our 20s.
Yeah.
I, myself included. There's a lot of things, and I'm not going to harp on which of those exercises are bad because there's a lot of discussion on that. But
I love doing that, by the way, and
Yeah.
I did that all through my 20s and of the good portion of my 30s. But however, in my 40s,
yeah,
all of a sudden those little tendinitis things that I worked through,
Yes.
and that's the other thing is that when you do competitive fitness, you work through the pain.
correct, because
Which is-
that's your job.
Right.
But those people also have trouble getting off the couch. I don't know if anyone saw there's a documentary on Hulk Hogan. He physically, and a lot of actually NFL people
Yeah,
I've seen,
NFL players.
need a hand to get up from the couch because they can't get up if their knee is past 90 degrees because they don't have knees back.
Yeah.
Same thing with shoulders. Yes, you can military press super hard when you're in your 20s, which isn't a great idea, but they did it. I know historically I did too before I knew better. But now, there's no way. I've had a labral tear. Most guys that have worked out shoulders or have
Yes.
played overhead sports have instability issues in their shoulders, injury or not. And adding to that, compounding that is not going to be helpful for arthritis or labral or rotator cuff tears in the future. So highly recommend you don't beat yourself up and do those high impact exercises all the time. You need at least 48 hours to 72 hours if you're recovering in between weights. Sessions for the same body parts. Working on your core, and I will debate this with a lot of people, you can work on your core in different ways, but you cannot work on your core 5 days a week in a row because, again, your core is a muscle. It needs to recover, and if you don't let it recover, it will continue to get torn up, and it will continue to be depleted. And that isn't going to help you. That isn't going to help your posture. It's not going to save your back, and it's not helpful. Cardio is a little bit different. You can get away with doing cardio more often, and we're going to segue into doing cardio. So women or men that want to do cardio more, it's not that women should do cardio more, it's that I've been asked by women more often about cardio, and I'm like, yeah, but we need to get weights in there too. They're like, yeah, but I don't want to bulk up. I'm like, you don't have to worry about
I get that.
Hormonally, most women aren't capable of bulking up unless they follow very specific regimens, including lots of protein intake, et cetera, et cetera. If you're not looking for that, it's much easier to just keep to like the 12 to 15 rep range. You're not going to bulk up, you're going to be fine. Because I've had a lot of women like, well, what if I can't fit in my jeans? I'm like, I'm not going to make you so quad-centric that you're going to bust out your jeans.
There's science behind this.
There is definitely science behind
it. It's not pop psychology.
Yeah, I promise I'm not making this up.
I promise he's not making it up either.
So my suggestion is, if you do want to do more cardio than weights, that's fine, but you can get away with doing cardio, but you're going to be doing a little bit lower impact cardio if you're doing it regularly. You cannot be doing box jumps 5 days a week in a row and expect your knees to make it past 40. It's just not going to happen. It's same thing with even something as ubiquitous as running. I have so many marathon patients that don't do strengthening because they need to get that mileage in, especially towards the end, end near the race when their volume of miles is so high. If they don't do their preseason strengthening, they end up tearing down so much muscle, eating so much muscle, that they don't have the strength in their hips to actually hold themselves properly in the form, and they end up kind of sinking a little bit each time they land. Each leg that they land on, they end up getting glute tendonitis, they end up getting knee issues because they physically don't have the muscle to be strong enough to withstand all of the impact.
So that would be called like what is called catabolic, or
anabolic. Excuse me, catabolic. No, you're correct. Catabolic is eating your muscle, anabolic is growing muscle. And so you do need to be specific about making sure you're doing your strengthening in between the sessions, making sure you get that amount of rest in so that you do grow that muscle, you're not just tearing it down. So hopefully that would be helpful with that. You were going to ask me one more question, and I completely.
The problem is that by the way, I talk to John occasionally from year to year. We see each other, we do this, and I talk to. But like now, I don't really sit for an hour or so and talk to John.
Right.
And now every time.
John's busy.
Yeah, John is busy, and
I'm
not as busy as he is right now with this thing, but. Every time he talks, I've got about 5 different questions that I keep on forgetting. I know one of them was one of them was like the kipping pull-up.
Okay.
Good or bad?
I will say I'm going to fall on the side of, for most people, not great. Obviously, if you're a gymnast, if you are a very strong, very practiced CrossFitter, then yes, you can absolutely do it safely and you'll be fine. That is not the layman. That is not the everyday Joe working out most times, where you have so much distraction on the joint, and it's so ballistic to the joint that you're not strong enough or smart enough, to be blunt, to control your form correctly, and it does a lot of wear and tear.
And when you're saying smart, that's muscle.
I don't mean intelligence. I just mean muscle memory.
Doesn't mean that you don't know 4 syllable words.
Correct.
It's the intelligence of the physicality of your body.
Knowing how it feels.
Neurological.
Yeah, exactly. I generally would consider myself a relatively strong person, and I, as a physical therapist, I hope I'm smart enough about how to use my own body. I would personally not do a kipping pull-up, because again, I have instability in my shoulders already. I do not need to contribute to that.
I've been calling it a Kipling push pull up, like
Rudyard Kipling. Yeah.
I thought it was invented by him.
No.
Hey, Pooh Bear.
No, it's not yet.
All right, we're gonna take a 2-second break and come back. You'll see us on the other side. Thanks a lot. Here we go. Damn, this is so interesting. This is so great. What time do you need to be done?
15 minutes ago.
You want to just wrap it up as that?
I don't think we did 4, and we kept mentioning 4.
I know. I think we did 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, we'll just ending notes.
Or you can just edit. I mean,
I'm definitely gonna edit, and I definitely want to do another one with you.
Okay.
This is great, and so I got some. How are you? I'm talking fitness with John Wilbert, physical therapist, right over there. Right behind.
When it's open again, because unfortunately it's not open because of COVID. We've all been affected, I understand. So we're just trying to give you as much information as you can use in real time, hoping that you have access to either gym equipment. I know back in April and March that was not easy, or go to an actual gym safely, of course, wearing a mask.
Real quick, by the way, John and I both run our business out of 277 Park Avenue, the Manhattan Athletic Club.
Yep.
It's a full block. It goes from Park Avenue all the way to Lexington at 48th Street, right in the heart of New York's new financial district, I guess, because nobody's downtown any longer.
True story.
So let's go bullet points on what do you want to say right now before things wrap things up?
Mostly just about posture, making sure you really are taking breaks
My
from
posture's terrible
sitting.
as we're talking about this.
True
Hey,
story.
you know what? I'm a guitar player.
Yes.
Always back problems.
Of course.
And so I read somewhere leaning away, and I have shoulder problems too, which I think is from guitar.
Yep.
And they tell you, you keep the guitar as close to your belly as possible.
From this camera angle, you're going to be able to see. I'm going to pretend that you can play guitar like this, which
that's
is not
what I
true.
think.
That you would be normally this way, but I just want
Right.
this angle to be seen. So if you're sitting correctly, you should be able to have your ears over your shoulders, over your hips. If you are typing on a computer, your elbows should be at your sides. This is what is the easiest for your spine to be able to control. When you are working in a guitar, you automatically are going to reach around and do that, which means you're destabilizing yourself. Notice that as soon as you do that, your neck cranes a little bit.
And the scapula pulls
and your scapula pulls forward, your shoulder blade. So it's not that that's bad, it's just that that's not going to be your default in your real life. The more you play guitar, the more you have to work on the rest of your posture and the rest of your strengthening, like a row, like doing the pull-aparts with the band, anything to undo this that you've been doing. That said, you don't have a choice when you're playing guitar. When you are on your computer, you always have a choice. You should not be like this, like Gollum, typing away at your computer. You should not be leaned back in your bed so that you're in a complete C curve and
But
you're
that's
typing
the way
away.
most people are doing.
Yes, and especially with iPads, people are holding like this. So most of my patients, when I got them back after we had a small recess from COVID, which unfortunately continues, and I'm sorry about everyone else who's still going through it right now, especially in other parts of the country. New York generally is doing fine-ish now. Most of those patients are telling me, I'm dying because I'm not at my desk. I'm at home, I'm at the kitchen table, I'm in my bed, I'm doing X, Y, and Z just to get through it. I have this many hours of work, it has to get done, what can I do? And my answer is, anytime you have any flexibility where you can put it on the kitchen counter, prop it up with books or games or puzzles. My computer is literally propped up by books and games and puzzles so that I can do it while I'm standing, because when you stand, you automatically tend to have a better posture. It's much harder to stand like this, but as soon as you sit, because of the back of the chair, it's a lot easier to do that.
That's me.
And so it's a lot easier to give yourself breaks. Do stand. It's not that you can stand all day. Most people don't have the endurance to stand for 8 hours. Your posture will slightly get a little mushy there too. But more importantly, just as many times a day as you can fidget, take breaks, change your environment, change the height of your screen. If you want to have your screen at the optimal height, you want to be able to salute from your eyebrows straight forward. That's the level where your screen should be. You should not be looking straight down. Guys or women with longer torsos, not so easy on a laptop. It might be a good idea to get a USB or a Bluetooth laptop and mouse so that you can put the screen up where you want it to be, and then put your keyboard where you want that to be, because obviously you don't want to elevate the laptop so that it's up here so that your eye level is correct, but now you're typing up here. That's a little difficult for your shoulders.
So this is a real, we could do this on another segment, talk about how to rearrange your office to be...
Gladly, I would love to do an ergonomic assessment.
Yeah, ergonomic is No, I know we're running out of time because John's got to get back to work, and I want to touch on something. When you go to WebMD, right, and if you have a pain and you decide that, you...
It's not cancer. The answer is it's not cancer.
I was going to say
That's always one of the options. Statistically, it's probably not.
I have everything. I'm like, I always think you're going to die first, but usually it turns out you have tendonitis or something like that. Right. There's a school of thought that stretching may not be as beneficial as we once thought, and one of the things at WebMD I noticed, it always says stretch, but it never says to strengthen.
Right.
And you and I have had this conversation.
We've had this conversation, and I'm going to give you very little information because unfortunately there's so many specifics to so many different issues that you really should talk to your physical therapist or your doctor, your GP, and your athletic trainer or trainer that you've been working with all along. And if you need to find someone, anybody worth their salt has credentials and wants to differentiate themselves and show you their credentials. So the best way to find a physical therapist or a trainer is to ask them, what do you have? What do you do? Do you have continuing education? What certifications do you have, etc.? Everyone who is good wants to show you and has all that information readily available. If they're a little sneaky about it, or if they kind of like brush that aside and just kind of go for the sale, probably not ideal. Probably you want to move on and go for somebody else. So so that said, to what are you looking for? Stretching versus foam roller and strengthening.
Foam roller is a whole nother.
Foam roller, highly recommend always foam roller.
But you can overdo it.
You can, of course, you absolutely can overdo it. I always say like 10 passes or 30 seconds on an area is plenty. More than that, and you're just bruising yourself.
Yeah. Okay,
that is usually the safest option if you are physically able to do the foam roller. Some people have mobility issues, can't get down to the ground. I understand. And so stretching. When you stand up, I am stretching my hip flexors compared to what we were doing just a moment ago. But that said, doing a specific hip flexor, I'll move to this camera, specific hip flexor stretch is very difficult because you have to have a lot of postures involved, you have to make sure your glutes are engaged, etc. It's not as simple and straightforward as it looks. It's not easy like a monkey see, monkey do situation where you can just watch a YouTube clip. And so sometimes some guidance in stretching is more important than just starting from cold. That said, strengthening is always a good idea as long as you don't have an actual injury underlying that is the problem that needs to be assessed by your doctor or physical therapist. Strengthening will give you more stability, and when you have more stability, your body tends to relax that tension of that postural muscles that you were speaking about when you stand up immediately after 3 hours of sitting, or stress, or working all day. When you have more stability, your body actually relaxes neurologically. It's called downtoning. You downtone the muscles, and I don't mean you lose body tone like everyone wants to be toned. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the muscles that you feel in your neck or in your jaw, those relax more when you have more stability in, say, your hips or your shoulders or your spine. And so strengthening is always a good idea. Specifics about that strengthening we'll probably have to do at another episode, which I would love to do.
We're running out of time right now. So basically you're saying, next time we'll talk about...
It's always a mix is the answer.
I guess what I'll talk about, we'll talk about the core as a foundation, which is I think what you're getting at is like with posture and everything. And hey, this has been really cool for me.
Great.
I learned a hell of a lot.
Great.
It was fun. It was
6 feet apart.
Exactly. Might have encroached slightly. But John's got to go. He's got to get back to work. You were talking fitness with Pat Gillis.
And John Wilbert. And if you have any questions specifically, by all means, contact him, and we will put links in the website of how you can contact myself. And if you have ideas for further episodes where you want to ask me specific questions or want to give us topics to work on, we can do that as well.
You just heard John talk for on
a lot.
Yeah, he's very, very knowledgeable. He's very, I don't want to say pragmatic, but how's it? You're very good at you putting things to work, and I can't give the guy enough kudos.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What happened to my? I used to be somewhat of an articulate person. I just lost like 6 or 7 words.
Oh, easily. Yeah, and I do the same. Ask my patients. I do the same. We all do. We're all in this together. Our brains are a little mushy.
I can say 4-syllable words.
Yeah. He's polysyllabic.
Onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Great. Well,
have a great one.
There you go. Shazam.
Shazam.
Wonder Twin
All
powers.
right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. That was fun, man. You did a phenomenal job. Get back to work. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
That is going to be the best piece that I've had so far.
It's going to be a lot of editing.